It was a bright and sunny Saturday morning in Oakwood Pines. This was a small, quiet neighborhood where houses sat close together and green lawns stretched out like soft carpets. Everyone here knew everyone, or at least that's what they thought. Kids played in the yards, dogs barked at squirrels, and old folks waved from their porches. It was the kind of place where nothing big ever happened, or so it seemed. My name's Jake. I'm just a guy who loves his motorcycle. It's not just any motorcycle, though it's my favorite thing in the whole world. Picture this, a shiny black bike that sparkles in the sun with big wheels that hum when I ride. And the best part, it's got a little silver bell hanging off the handle. Every time I roll down the street, jingle, 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 that bell sings a happy little song. Most people in Oakwood Pines liked it. They'd hear me coming, look up from their gardens or their coffee and smile. "There goes Jake," they'd say, waving at me like I was their buddy. It made me feel good, like I belonged here. But not everyone was a fan. Oh no, there was one person who hated that bell more than anything. Her name was Karen, and she was trouble with a capital T. Karen wasn't just any neighbor, she was the HOA queen. HOA stands for Homeowners Association, which is like a club that makes rules for the neighborhood. Karen acted like she was the boss of that club. Actually, she acted like she was the boss of everything. She had a big house with perfect flowers and a porch where she'd sit all day, watching everyone like a hawk. If you parked your car a little crooked or let your grass grow too long, Karen would know, and she'd tell you about it, loud and clear. Karen wasn't tall or big, but she had a way of making you feel small. She had short, curly hair that looked like it was glued in place, and she always wore these bright shirts with flowers on them. Her eyes were sharp, like she could spot a speck of dirt from a mile away. And her voice, it was loud and bossy, the kind that made dogs hide under couches. Every time I rode by her house, she'd stop whatever she was doing and stare at me. Not a nice stare either. It was the kind of look that said, "You're ruining my day, Jake." I'd just smile and wave, but inside, I knew she didn't like me one bit. Now let's talk about that bell again. Like I said, most folks thought it was fun. Old Mr. Thompson, who lived next door to me, said it reminded him of ice cream trucks from when he was a kid. Mrs. Lopez down the street told me it made her laugh every time she heard it. Even the kids on their bikes would race after me, giggling and shouting, "Jingle Jake, Jingle Jake." It was my thing, my little mark on Oakwood Pines. But to Karen, that bell was the worst sound in the world. She'd cover her ears and yell, "That noise is awful." Every time I rode by, I didn't get it. It was just a tiny bell. How could something so small make her so mad? The first time she complained, I thought she was joking. I just pulled into my driveway one afternoon, and there she was, marching across the street like she owned it. "Jake," she shouted, pointing at my bike. "That bell has got to go. It's too loud. It's driving me crazy." I looked at her, confused. "Karen," I said, "it's just a little jingle. It's not even loud enough to wake up a cat." But she didn't care. She crossed her arms and huffed, "I don't like it, and that's that." Then she stomped back to her house, muttering about rules and respect. I just shook my head and laughed. She was grumpy, sure, but I figured she'd get over it. Boy, was I wrong. Karen didn't get over it. She got worse. Every day after that, she'd find a new reason to hate my bell. If I rode by in the morning, she'd say it woke her up. If I rode by at night, she'd say it kept her awake. One time, she even said it scared her cat, which was funny because I'd never seen her with a cat. She started leaving notes on my door too. Little pieces of paper with big angry writing. "Stop ringing that bell," one said. "This is a quiet neighborhood," said another. I'd find them stuck to my mailbox or taped to my bike. It was like she was on a mission to make me miserable. But here's the thing Karen didn't know. I wasn't just some random guy with a motorcycle. I had a secret, a big one. See, I'd moved to Oakwood Pines a few months ago and nobody knew the real reason why. They thought I was just a regular dude who liked bikes. And sure, I did love my bike, but that wasn't the whole story. I was hiding something Karen would never guess in a million years. Every time she glared at me from her porch, I'd smile back, knowing she had no idea who she was messing with. That bell she hated so much, it wasn't just for fun, it was part of my plan, and soon she'd find out why. Let me paint you a picture of that Saturday morning when it all started. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, and the air smelled like fresh-cut grass. I'd just finished washing my bike in the driveway, making it extra shiny. I hopped on, gave the bell a little ring, jingle, jingle, and started riding down the street. Kids waved, dogs barked, and everything felt perfect. I wasn't going far, just a quick loop around the block to enjoy the day. But as I turned the corner by Karen's house, I saw her. She was on her porch, sipping coffee from a big pink mug. The second she heard my bell, her face changed. Her eyes got narrow, her mouth turned into a frown, and she slammed her mug down so hard I thought it might break. "Jake," she yelled, standing up fast. "That's it, I've had enough of that stupid bell." I slowed down and looked at her, trying not to laugh. "Good morning, Karen," I said, nice and calm. "What's wrong now?" She pointed at me like I'd just robbed a bank. "You know what's wrong. That bell is a menace. It's loud and annoying, and I'm sick of hearing it every single day." I shrugged. "It's just a bell, Karen. It's not a big deal." But she wasn't having it. She pulled out her phone and waved it in the air. "I'm calling the cops," she shouted. "They'll make you stop." I didn't say anything. I just leaned back on my bike and watched her. She thought she was so smart, calling 911 over a little jingle. She thought she'd scare me, maybe get me in trouble. But here's the funny part, I wasn't scared at all, not even a little. Why? Because of my secret. Karen was about to find out something she never expected, and it was going to turn her whole world upside down. She didn't know it yet, but that phone call, it was the worst mistake she could have made. So here's a question for you, reader or viewer, if you're watching this somewhere cool like YouTube. What would you do with a neighbor like Karen? Would you ignore her and keep doing your thing? Or would you ring your bell even louder just to see her face turn red? Drop your answer in the comments below and let me know where you're reading this from today. I bet some of you have neighbors just as wild as Karen. Maybe not as loud, but definitely as nosy. Tell me about it, I'm all ears. That sunny Saturday morning was the start of something big in Oakwood Pines. Karen thought she was in charge, but she had no clue what was coming. My bell wasn't just a noise, it was a signal. A little hint of the truth hiding right under her nose. And pretty soon she'd wish she'd never picked up that phone. It all started on that sunny Saturday when Karen decided she'd had enough of me and my motorcycle bell. I was just minding my own business, riding home after a quick spin around Oakwood Pines. The sun was high, the breeze felt nice, and my bell was jingling like it always did. Jingle, jingle, jingle. It was a happy little sound, at least to me. I pulled into my driveway, still smiling from the ride, ready to park my shiny black bike and relax for a bit. But before I could even turn off the engine, there she was, Karen. She came storming across the street like a tornado, her flip-flops slapping the pavement with every angry step. Her face was red, her curly hair bouncing, and her eyes were locked on me like I was the worst person in the world. In her hand, her phone held up high like a weapon. She didn't even wait for me to say hi. She just started yelling. "That bell is a disturbance," she shouted, pointing at my bike with one finger while shaking her phone with the other. "It's too loud, it's awful, I'm calling 911 right now if you don't get rid of it." Her voice was so loud, I bet dogs 3 streets over could hear her. She stood there, huffing and puffing, waiting for me to argue or beg or something. I didn't, though. I just looked at her and laughed. Not a mean laugh, just a little chuckle, like she'd told a silly joke. "Karen," I said, nice and calm, "it's a bell, a tiny little bell. It's not hurting anyone." I even gave it a small shake, jingle, to show her how quiet it really was. To me, it was no big deal, just a fun sound that made my rides a little happier. But to Karen, oh, you'd think it was a fire alarm going off in her living room. She didn't like my laugh, not one bit. Her face got even redder and her eyes got all squinty. "Don't you laugh at me, Jake," she snapped. "I'm serious. That bell is driving me crazy and I won't stand for it anymore." Then she started tapping her phone, her fingers moving fast. She held it up to her ear and started talking, loud and dramatic, like she was in a movie. "Hello 911. Yes, this is Karen Thompson from Oakwood Pines. I've got a problem. There's a guy here harassing the whole neighborhood with his motorcycle bell. You need to come quick." I stood there, leaning against my bike, watching her put on this big show. Neighbors started peeking out their windows, Mrs. Lopez with her curtains pulled back, Mr. Thompson squinting from his porch. They didn't look mad or scared, though. They just shook their heads like they were thinking, "Oh, it's Karen again." See, everyone in Oakwood Pines knew how she was. She complained about everything. One time, she called the cops because a kid's kite got stuck in her tree. Another time, she yelled at Mrs. Lopez for planting flowers that were too bright. So when they saw her freaking out about my bell, they weren't surprised. They were used to her nonsense. But Karen, she didn't notice them watching. She was too busy glaring at me, her phone still pressed to her ear. "Yes, he's right here," she told the operator. "He's laughing about it. He doesn't care that he's ruining our peace." She kept going, her voice getting louder and louder, like she wanted the whole world to know how bad my bell was. "I've told him 100 times to stop, but he won't listen. He's breaking the rules." I didn't say anything back. I just crossed my arms and stayed quiet. She thought she was so smart, calling 911 like that. She thought she'd scare me into throwing my bell away or maybe even moving out of the neighborhood. She stood there, smirking a little, like she'd already won. Like she was the queen of Oakwood Pines and I was just some pesky bug she could squash with one phone call. Here's the thing though, Karen didn't see what I saw. She didn't know what I knew. While she was yelling and pointing, I wasn't worried, not even a tiny bit. I wasn't scared of her and I wasn't scared of the cops she was calling. Why? Because I had a secret, a big, juicy secret that she'd never guess in a million years. I leaned against my bike, cool as a cucumber, watching her make a fool of herself. That bell she hated so much, it wasn't just a bell. It was part of something bigger, something she'd find out about soon enough. As she finished her call and put her phone down, crossing her arms to match mine. "They're on their way," she said, her voice all smug. "You're in trouble now, Jake. The police don't mess around with people like you." She rocked back on her heels, looking so proud of herself. "Maybe next time you'll think twice before you ruin my day." I tilted my head and smiled. "We'll see, Karen," I said real quiet. "We'll see who's in trouble." She blinked like she didn't expect me to sound so calm. For a second her smirk wobbled, but then she shook her head and turned back toward her house. "You'll see," she called over her shoulder as she marched away. "You're done for." I watched her go, her flip-flops still slapping the ground. The neighbors went back to their day. Mrs. Lopez watered her flowers. Mr. Thompson sipped his coffee. Everything looked normal again, like nothing had happened. But inside, I was grinning. Karen thought she'd won this fight. She thought she'd called the cops and scared me good. She had no idea what was coming her way. No idea at all. See, I'd been in Oakwood Pines for a while now, and I'd been watching things. Little things nobody else noticed. Like how Karen always acted so perfect, but her trash cans were full of weird stuff. Or how she'd snap at everyone else but never let anyone get too close to her house. I didn't say anything about it, not yet. I just kept riding my bike, letting my bell jingle and keeping my eyes open. Karen thought she was the boss, but she didn't know I was onto her. And that phone call she just made. It was about to make everything a whole lot more interesting. So there I stood in my driveway with my bike and my bell, waiting. The air was still warm, the birds were still singing, and Karen was probably on her porch thinking she'd beat me. But I wasn't worried, I wasn't mad, I was ready. Ready for what, you ask? Oh, you'll find out soon. Let's just say Karen's big plan was about to flip upside down and she'd never see it coming. The minutes started ticking by after Karen called 911. I stood there in my driveway, leaning against my shiny black motorcycle, my arms crossed. My little bell hung quiet now, no more jingle, jingle, but I could still feel the tension in the air. Karen didn't go back to her house. Oh no. She stayed right there, a few steps away, smirking like she'd just saved the whole world from some big, bad monster, me. She couldn't stop talking either. She kept muttering stuff under her breath, loud enough for me to hear. "Rules are rules," she said, shaking her head. "You don't get to just ride around making noise. People need respect." Every few seconds, she'd throw me a dirty look, like the kind you give a dog that chewed up your favorite shoe. Her face was red, her curly hair bouncing every time she moved, and her flip-flops tapped the ground like she was too mad to stand still. She was so sure the cops were coming to get me. So sure she'd won. I didn't say much, I just stayed quiet watching her. My eyes followed her every move, but I kept my mouth shut. See, I'd been living in Oakwood Pines for a few months now, not long, but long enough to start noticing things. Little things, things most people wouldn't think twice about. Like how Karen's fancy red car was always parked a little funny. Not straight like everyone else, but crooked, like she was in a hurry. Sometimes it was half on her lawn, sometimes blocking part of the street. Nobody else parked like that. Why did she? And then there were the packages. You know how people get stuff delivered to their porches, like toys or clothes or snacks. Well, in Oakwood Pines, those packages started disappearing. Not all the time, but enough that folks were talking about it. Mrs. Lopez said she lost a box of cookies last month. Mr. Thompson grumbled about a new fishing hat that never showed up. Kids whined about missing toys. It was weird. But here's the thing I noticed. Corinne's porch, it was always full of boxes. Big ones, small ones, all piled up like she ordered stuff every day. And none of her packages ever went missing. Not one. Strange, right? I didn't tell anyone what I was thinking. Not yet. I kept it all in my head, like a secret puzzle I was putting together piece by piece. While Corinne stood there ranting, I just watched her. Her voice got louder, her face got redder, and her words got sharper. "The cops will deal with you, Jake," she snapped, pointing at me again. "You'll wish you never moved here. You'll wish you never bought that stupid bike with that stupid bell." She was so mad, spit flew out of her mouth when she talked. It was kind of funny, but I didn't laugh this time. I just kept my cool. "You think you're so smart," she went on, packing back and forth now. "Riding around like you own the place. Well, not anymore. I've had enough. The police are coming and they'll make you stop. They'll take that bell away and then we'll all have some peace." She stopped packing and stared at me, waiting for me to say something, waiting for me to get mad or scared or maybe even beg her to call off the cops. But I didn't. I didn't move. I didn't frown. I didn't even blink. Instead, I smiled, just a little smile, nice and slow. "We'll see about that, Corinne," I said, my voice soft but steady. She froze for a second, like she didn't know what to make of it. My smile threw her off. She expected me to fight back or run away, but I didn't. I just stood there, calm as could be, leaning on my bike like I didn't have a care in the world. And that made her mad all over again. "What's so funny?" she demanded, stepping closer. "You think this is a joke? You think the cops won't care? Oh, they'll care. I told them everything. I told them how you've been harassing me for weeks." She was yelling now, loud enough that a bird flew out of a nearby tree. "You're in big trouble, Jake, big trouble." I didn't answer. I just kept smiling, watching her lose it. See, Corinne didn't know it, but I'd already figured out something big. Something she thought nobody would ever find out. All those little things I'd noticed. The car, the packages, the way she acted like she was better than everyone. They weren't just random. They meant something. They were clues. And I'd been putting them together day by day, ride by ride. Every time I jingled my bell and rolled past her house, I was watching, listening, thinking. Corinne thought she was the smartest person in Oakwood Pines. She thought she could boss everyone around and get away with anything. But she didn't know I was onto her. She didn't know my secret, why I was really here, why I kept riding my bike, why I wasn't scared of her silly 911 call. She thought she was winning, standing there with her smirk and her phone, waiting for the cops to show up and yell at me. But she was wrong. So wrong. The minutes kept ticking by. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. The sun was still shining, the air was still warm, and Corinne was still glaring. She tapped her foot, looking down the street every few seconds. "They'll be here soon," she muttered, more to herself than to me. "Any minute now, you'll see." She sounded so sure, like she could already picture me in handcuffs, my bike hauled away, my bell gone forever. I didn't move, I didn't argue. I just stayed where I was, leaning on my bike, my arms still crossed. The neighbors were watching again, little faces peeking out from behind curtains, old Mr. Thompson rocking on his porch. They didn't say anything, but I could tell they were curious. What was going to happen? Was Karen really going to win this time, or was something else about to go down? I knew the answer. I'd known it for a while. All those rides around the neighborhood, all those jingles of my bell, they weren't just for fun. They were part of something bigger, something Karen never saw coming. And now, with the cops on their way, everything was about to change. She thought she'd called them to get me in trouble. She didn't know she'd just set the stage for her own big surprise. So I waited, patient, quiet, smiling. Karen kept muttering, kept packing, kept throwing me those dirty looks, but I could feel it. The truth was getting closer. Every second that passed brought her closer to a reckoning. Something she thought was hidden was about to come out into the open. And when it did, oh, everyone in Oakwood Pines would know, not just me. Everyone. The moment was here. Sirens started wailing in the distance, cutting through the quiet of that sunny Saturday in Oakwood Pines. I stood by my motorcycle in the driveway, my little bell hanging still, while Karen's smirk grew wider than ever. She'd been waiting for this, waiting for the cops to show up and prove she was right. She turned her head toward the sound, her eyes lighting up like she'd just won a prize. "Here they come," she said, her voice loud and happy. "You're done for now, Jake." The two police cars rolled into the street, their red and blue lights flashing bright. They stopped right in front of my house, tires crunching on the pavement. Karen didn't waste a second. She started waving her arms like a kid trying to get the teacher's attention. "Over here," she yelled, pointing at me with one big, dramatic finger. "That's him, that's the guy, he's the one with that awful bell." She bounced on her flip-flops, so sure the cops were about to swoop in and drag me away. She looked at me with that smug little grin, like she'd finally beaten me. The car doors opened and two cops stepped out. They were tall, wearing dark uniforms with shiny badges that glinted in the sun. One had a serious face and a notepad in his hand. The other carried a piece of paper and looked around, scanning the street. Karen kept pointing, her voice loud and bossy. "He's right there. He's been harassing everyone with that noisy bell. You've got to stop him." She was so excited she didn't even notice the neighbors peeking out again. Mrs. Lopez by her window, Mr. Thompson on his porch, all watching with big eyes. But here, where it got good, the cops didn't even look at me, not a glance, not a nod, nothing. Instead, they turned and started walking straight toward Karen. Their boots thumped on the ground, slow and steady, heading right for her. Karen's smirk froze. Her arm dropped a little, still pointing at me, but now she looked confused. "Wait, what?" she stammered, her voice shaky. She took a tiny step back, her flip-flops squeaking. "What's going on? He's over there. Why are you coming to me?" The cop with the paper stopped right in front of her. He held it up so she could see it, his face all serious. "Ma'am," he said loud and clear, "we're not here for him. We're here for you. Karen Thompson, you're under arrest for theft and tampering with mail." His words hung in the air like a big thunderclap. Everything went quiet for a second, no birds, no wind, just the sound of Karen's breath catching in her throat. Her jaw dropped. I mean, it fell so far I thought it might hit the ground. Her eyes got huge and her hands started shaking. "What?" she squeaked, looking from one cop to the other. "Me arrested? No, 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 you've got it all wrong. I called you about him." She pointed at me again, but now her finger was wobbly, like she wasn't so sure anymore. He's the problem, his bell, his stupid bell. I didn't do anything. The neighbors gasped. Mrs. Lopez's curtains flew open wider. Mr. Thompson stopped rocking his chair and leaned forward. Even a kid on a bike down the street stopped pedaling to stare. Everyone was watching, and I couldn't help it. I grinned. Not a little smile this time, but a big, happy one. See, this was the moment I'd been waiting for. Karen thought she'd called the cops to get me, but she just tripped over her own big plan. And now it was time for the truth to come out. The cop with the notepad stepped closer to Karen. "We've got evidence, ma'am," he said, flipping a page. "We've been watching you, stealing packages from porches, messing with people's mail. It's all here." He tapped the paper with his pen, showing her something she couldn't argue with. Karen's face went white, like all the color drained out of it. "No," she shouted. "That's not true. I wouldn't." But she couldn't finish. She just stood there, stammering, looking like a fish out of water. I leaned back against my bike, arms still crossed, and watched it all happen. The neighbors started whispering to each other, their voices buzzing like bees. Karen kept shaking her head, but the cops weren't listening. They pulled out handcuffs, shiny silver ones that clicked when they opened them. "Turn around, please," the first cop said, his voice firm. Karen didn't move at first. She just stared at them, then at me, her eyes wild. "This is a mistake," she yelled. "He's the one you want. He's the bad guy." That's when I decided to speak up. "Nope, Karen," I said, nice and calm. "I'm not just a biker guy." I stood up straight, letting my grin get even bigger. "I'm an undercover cop, been here in Oakwood Pines to figure out who's been stealing stuff, and guess what? It's you." I pointed at her this time, just for fun. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again, like she